morning and welcome to the Morning Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Cam, coming to you as always from the Spotlight Studios here in Morristown, New Jersey. I always like talking to podcasters, and I got another one on here today. My guest today is a lifelong athlete and experienced and innovative marketing professional in brand development and management. She has a particular expertise with integrated marketing strategies, strategic territory management, and relationship building, and she encourages her varsity humans to Botox the wrinkles and highlight the scars. She's the founder of KO Alliance and the host of the Turmeric and Tequila podcast. She questions a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time. She is Kristen Olson. Kristen, welcome.
Hello, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. It's so great to have you on. Like we were kind of mentioning before, when I listen to podcasts, I listen to podcasts like yours, because we kind of met through PodMax and those guys over there. And like, I just kind of I like the vibe, so Turmeric and Tequila. What is that? Like why those two things coupled together, just for alliteration, or is it something like a way of life type thing?
Yeah, no, it's definitely way of life. And and I echo your statements on kind of listening to our tribe that we're building as Pod Fam. It's really cool to kind of listen to everybody's journey and listen to people, but Turmeric and Tequila, yes, lifelong athlete and been in branding and marketing forever. Saw how people through my journey, we're kind of digesting the realities through their cell phones, particularly our young people. And so long story short, we started the podcast to really highlight what I say, my varsity humans that are questioning a better way, that maybe don't want to be influencers, but they've had this really incredible journey. So we just wanted to put the mic in front of them. The message behind specifically the branding, Turmeric and Tequila, as a lifelong athlete and as someone that is a fun enthusiast, I'm here for the turmeric, the anti-inflammatory, and obviously the tequila, the inflammatory. And it was really about this juxtaposition of being all things. I think we are so often put into categories, and that's what marketing and branding, what I do, and people of that field do. So we wanted to gracefully disrupt what that is and let everybody know, but again, our young humans, that you can do what you want to do the way you want to do it.
So what are some kind of guests that you would have on the show? I mean, I know it's just for people that listen, they kind of get an idea.
Oh, man, we've covered everything. I work a lot within health and wellness, so I'm super passionate about anything in that arena. And what's cool to see over time that we've gone from marketing and branding to fitness specific situations, CrossFit, like niche stuff, yoga, to our young humans are getting so much more savvy and understanding stuff. It's gone more of a category of lifestyle because, we've got CrossFitters that do yoga, that love paleo, that they cross so many boxes, and it's happening younger and younger. So again, this is the upside to social media and the power of our phones and digesting media all the time, is exposure to newer things earlier. Obviously there's a downside to that. So we have people from, first responders to health and fitness professional athletes to people that, I did a podcast last night focusing on diversity in golf. I was on their podcast. So it's anyone that's really challenging status quo, and it's guys, girls, different socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, voting situation. I mean, we try and get everybody that's just questioning that better way and then highlight the way they did it. So my faith is that the right person will hear it, and then they'll get some sort of inspiration to take the step in the right direction for themselves.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's great. And that's why I like listening to the show, because it kind of gives you like a big scope of perspectives for sure. So one of the things that you mentioned in that, first answer was that the people, the young humans, and I love that you call them humans. Is there a reason why you call them humans?
No, it's so funny. Everyone asks you that. I have no idea. I think that just came out of nowhere. And I think from a marketing branding mind, I'm a very visual learner. When I say people, it just seems so casual to me. Yeah. Human is like this really all encompassing, physical 3-dimensional thing. Right. And the more I've gotten to know myself and gotten to work with people, you see how complex we are and how different, little idiosyncrasies we have, which are our true authentic brand. And like, we're just so, I'm fascinated by human behavior, but I just feel like human is a more formal way of saying person. And I think, I don't know, in my mind, that's just more fitting to call people that.
No, I think it's cool. I mean, I like it. I was just curious if there was like a reason why, because I mean, like I call my listeners, this is just a new thing that I started, Spotlighters. Just because,
I love it. Okay.
But I always wanted something that I can call the audience rather than just being like, hey, everybody. Because then it's just kind of like whatever. But if you're a spotlighter, you're like with it. So
I like it. We got like Justin Bieber and the Beliebers.
Yeah, right. Yeah. The Grobenites or whatever Josh Groban fans are. I don't know why I know that. But one of the things that was the question that I was initially going to ask before I asked that one was about the how some of these younger humans don't want to be influencers. So like, is influencer like a dirty word? Is like people don't want to be, because I feel like you and I are influencers for
Sure.
whether we want to believe it or not, because we have a podcast and we have people that, whether they're humans or whether they're spotlighters, that listen to us because we, put out a message or we put out people's stories or whatever it is. So we are influencing to a certain degree. And I do think that people, like take influencer and kind of twist it into something that it really shouldn't be. But is that really the reason why you see people kind of being anti-influencer, or is there a different reason?
Well, I think yes, it's become a buzzword that's super overused at this point with multiple meanings. At the end of the day, I think it's a very positive thing, and recognizing how each and every human is anyone is an influencer, because, if you walk down the street and you hear someone be like, oh, I like your shoes, and you wear those shoes again, and it could be someone you don't even know. So if you really recognize like how you do have impact in the world, even in the smallest scale, versus someone that maybe has millions of followers and, they're saying buy this protein drink or whatever, it's all to me kind of relative. It's more about recognizing that responsibility. I actually did print shirts that said influencer on the front of them just because we're here to poke the bear and be the most. But it's because I do think the word is tired, and I'm in marketing branding, so we know I'm an influencer. And I do think there's kind of like a slimy connotation. But on the flip side, I think people are doing it right. So hopefully I'm hoping that the brand and the term and the reference around influencer can evolve a little bit, because I do think it is a good thing. And just as you said, it's all about accepting that responsibility and understanding that, yeah, man, if you're on the mic, that's a big deal. We have to be conscious of what we're saying, how we're saying it. It's got to be authentic, not perfect. But there's a sense of responsibility there. So I think it's a good conscious reminder, if it does make you cringe or make you smile, to just recognize each and every person that you do have influence in this world, regardless of what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like one of the things that I liked what you said in there is that it has to be authentic and not perfect. And I've been yelling about authentic, not yelling, but like really trying to dissect what authentic means over like the last couple of weeks. And I don't know why. It was just something like we were talking about Clubhouse before we got on here, and I have been talking about Clubhouse quite a bit. But like you're on Clubhouse, but not very active on Clubhouse. And obviously I am quite active on Clubhouse. And one of the things you hear all the time is like authentic. And that's another word that I think has just been like just stripped of any meaning 100%. That it maybe had before. And like now, to be authentic, you need to be like covered in tattoos, the loudest guy in the room, like talking about all sorts of crazy stuff, like the life of the party, the whole thing. But that's not, nowhere in the dictionary, at least from what I could find, is that what authentic actually is. So, talk about that a little bit more. Like, how do you build authenticity as someone that does a lot of like personal branding and all that kind of stuff? Like, what are ways that you can actually build authenticity?
Yeah,
the real kind of authenticity.
Sure. I always say, like, on my podcast, whatever you believe, God, universe, or Madonna. I think I'll go with universe here, and I'm a huge Madonna fan. That's why I say that. Has a sick sense of humor. So it's kind of funny that, I was one of 4 children. I was the oldest of 4, 3 younger brothers. So my world from the very get-go was like, speaking out, or, being at the leader of the pack and trying to like be the only girl and, be heard amongst these 3 wild brothers. And so, as things got on, it's louder, using your voice. And like I said, when you look back at your path, you're like, man, this worked out exactly how it was. So being somebody in marketing branding, it's ironic, and yet it makes complete sense that now I'm here on the other side being like, yes, I love this. And we're totally going to disrupt this whole situation, because I see most people are being sold a dream, and that's not the point. So when I sit down with clients and we talk about, authenticity or whatever, and I completely agree, that's way overused, and people are trying to like create what's authentic, and that's an oxymoron. We, especially when I'm working like with individuals, we work to really reveal what's already there versus create something new. And our big brands and Nikes and big food, big pharma, all these guys, they're so used to this traditional space of, this is, you come in and like, if you remember pop music of the 90s, like Britney Spears, we're going to come in, here's what you wear, here's how you look, let's manufacture your voice, let's do this. And I'm also a Britney fan, hashtag free Britney.
Are you yeah, I was just going to ask that. Are you,
yeah,
I watched that whole documentary with my girlfriend. I was like, oh my God, like this
I haven't even watched it yet, wild. But yeah, I actually watched Notorious B.I.G.'s on Netflix 2 days ago. So those are on my docket. But yeah, it's really a magical time, I think, for people like us or anyone on the mic or doing something like little boutique situations, because these big situations that haven't evolved, understanding that the consumer now, it's more transparent than ever, they can get into it. So if you're building something that's authentic, it's not. And versus if you have a small company that can really dial in and reveal all these little idiosyncrasies that you already are, that are authentic, and you're exposing that is what is sellable. So, and I don't mean that from a business standpoint, it's what's, provide space for impact, provide space for influence or inspiration. So it's we as a marketing company really work to reveal what's already there versus create something really glamorous and great. And we can do that, but that's not the point.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. And also again, hashtag free Britney. You heard it
Yes.
here. So, I saw like they had like t-shirts and I was like, maybe I should get a t-shirt, but I haven't gotten there
Dude, you
yet.
totally should. I'm
Yeah.
with you. I'll do it.
I mean, because like my girlfriend makes fun of me because all I wear are morning spotlight t-shirts now.
Oh, you already know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I get it. And like the one thing that I am trying to do is get more of other podcasts that I listen to their merch. So I mean, like literally on the Turmeric and Tequila like shop thing, looking for just a Turmeric and Tequila t-shirt.
Dude, send me your address. I'll send you one, and let's trade, and I'll wear one of your shirts. I think that's a good thing to start. I'm with it.
We'll do a merch trade, straight up merch trade, t-shirt for t-shirt. That's perfect. All right, I'll send that to you. Okay, so lifelong athlete, as someone that is also somewhat of a lifelong athlete, talk to me about the athletic career. Like, where did it start? What was the sport? All that kind of stuff.
So like I said, one of three younger brothers. So we got thrown, and my parents are both athletes. Dad played football in college. Mom was a swimmer. Got thrown into everything. We're in Colorado. We skied, we snowboarded, we did motocross, we did hockey, we did, soccer, like all the traditional ones. And lacrosse was my love. I was fortunate enough to be a Colorado kid in lacrosse back in the day. You know, this is 20 plus years ago. Wasn't huge. It was, we're in Midwest-ish, Mountain West, whatever. And this was like a Northeast sport. So I was fortunate to be ambitious in it, be pretty good. I actually turned down a couple scholarships to go top 20 D1 and walked on to George Mason University. I think they were 20th I don't know, top 20 something at the time. Had no idea what I was doing, but it was a great opportunity for me to understand and at points lean back into that 18-year-old self that's like, I don't care, we're going to figure this out. And we need that nowadays. So play lacrosse, tore my ACL, had a red shirt. After lacrosse, I didn't really fulfill all my goals that I wanted to. So thankfully, after college, just got into CrossFit. It started to take off and competed in that for, I don't even know, 7 years. I still do that. But went to the games, I think 4 or 5 times, and actually got second at the CrossFit games with the affiliate team in 2011. And now we chill and we just train for life and no more competing and let the body be. But it's been a major supplement to my life as far as like life skills.
Yeah. Like what kind of life skills? Because I mean, like I have mine that I have picked. So I played college baseball, like, the whole thing, coached college baseball for 5 years after I graduated. Yes. And obviously I'm doing something totally different now, but not because I don't love it. It was very hard to make money being a, assistant college baseball coach for 5 years. But anyway, so what were some of the life, because I have mine and I'm going to see if they match up with some of what I have, but what were some of those life skills that you kind of take from sports and kind of bring them into now your professional life?
I mean, early on when you're a young kiddo, it's, a confidence, working with others, commitment, time management. And then as I got older, it was, oh my gosh. I mean, I felt like I was so ahead of the game, and I'm sure you felt this too, getting into the business world where, because when you play a college sport and you're a young human, you don't know how big of a commitment it's going to be. And it's like a full-time job plus school, plus your social life, plus whatever, relationships or whatever. I mean, it's a lot. So when I got into the business world post-graduation, it was like, this is not that big a deal. And, I mean, it was hard, but like, not really. And I chose to start a company, and I always choose the hardest route for some reason. I'm a masochist at heart, I think. Right. And it was still like, you kind of knew how to set certain things up, and you had the relationships and networking, and you had bonded with so many people and understood, the structure of business. And essentially we are commodities as collegiate athletes. And I mean, you just understand some of those things on a deeper level alongside just relationships in general. I think working with people was huge.
Yeah, that was like one of the things, and that's the one that I was hoping that you said that, because like I was on actually Mark Stinson's podcast, and Mark asked me, he was like, oh, like what'd you get from sports? Was it like the competitiveness thing? And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm not like one of those people that just like has to be the best at everything, but I'm competitive. Like if I'm gonna play a game with, I don't care who it is, I'm going to try to win, and I might not always win, but I'm at least going to try. But that was the one thing. It was just like the teamwork side of it, because like as a pitcher, I can't also play shortstop, right field, catch, do whatever. And like, I had to rely on other people, and those people are now still my best friends now. I mean, I'm 30, so I graduated in 2012, so 9 years ago. They're still my best friends, and we hang out still, obviously now a little bit different, but like still hang out as much as we possibly can and all that kind of stuff. So I think like the teamwork, camaraderie, like how to work as a team, how to, whether it's a networking thing or working within a business or running a business or doing this kind of stuff, like being able to network, I think is super important.
It's huge. It's huge. Yeah. And I think if any kid, I mean, my first company was Colorado Rising Stars Lacrosse, mouthful. That's when I really learned creative strategy, because lacrosse was like this rich white kid sport. It had provided so much for my life, and I wanted to expose it to other people. So we had to kind of learn how to do it for free, essentially. But if, imagine if young kids everywhere could experience some of those things so much earlier on. Like it's a game changer to learn that early versus when, post college.
Right. Yeah. And like, tell me more about that. The Colorado Rising Stars Lacrosse,
Yeah.
right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
I was nervous I was gonna mess it up, but like, so I live in Jersey. My sister played lacrosse, and it's definitely like a Northeast, like you said, kind of like a rich white kid type thing to do. And so like, I think that's really, I don't know if admirable is the right word, but something that I think is really cool is that you were just like actively trying to grow the game in areas that didn't necessarily have access to that game. And there's sports that are similar in like a lot of different ways throughout the country. So tell me how you did stuff like that.
Well, coming from Colorado, it really started, I think, from a myopic space where I was, again, the oldest of four. Family was pretty like, do whatever. I was never a bad kid. I didn't have a lot of rules. We messed up here and there, but nothing major. And I just I was very like, I'm going to play lacrosse. So I was goal oriented. So I kept my shit together because I had it in game. And so once I got to college, I was like, oh, this person is telling me what to do all the time. Like, I don't really like, it didn't comprehend with my soul, and it still kind of doesn't. That's just part of my personality, I think. So the second I was done, and I had a fifth year. So by the fifth year, cause I had a red shirt from ACL, I was very like ready to be done. It was a phenomenal experience. My coach was great, all good things, but it was just a foreign situation for me. So when I graduated, I was like, entrepreneur, like we're going to figure this out. I don't care. I'm not going to work for a corporate. That's not my vibe. And so I knew going back to Colorado, lacrosse was still pretty small. So there's tons of opportunity there. So we just started to do everything that satisfied the lacrosse market: camps, tournaments, team sales. We went into schools. Like it was an extraordinary experience. I had no idea what I was doing, and it was the perfect time to start something because it didn't take a lot of money. I think I put like lacrosse sticks on a credit card or something, and I learned LLC, and I mean, everything was so new. At that time, though, ironically, lacrosse started to get huge, and we had professional teams come out to Colorado, and camps were like $600 and $700. And so it was going against why I even started, which was to expose the game of lacrosse to everyone because it had provided so much for my life. So we learned how to flip the script. Again, this was just like innovation out of minimal budget and wanting to do what we wanted to do. Or we went into like elementary schools into field days so we could show all the kids, here's lacrosse, and we create sponsorships with like Cliff Bar or some of these. And we were always responsible at like something healthier than, just candy bars or anything like that. But we'd bring like Cliff Bars into the school so they wouldn't have to buy popsicles, save them some budget. We got to teach lacrosse and kids got to see it. Everybody was happy. So we just started, and this is before Instagram or any of the creative strategy activations you see now. So that's kind of what was the base of our business for doing things a better way and figuring out a better solution. And it just kind of built from there.
Yeah. And then from a CrossFit perspective, like I've never done CrossFit. I've had people that I've worked with at different schools that do CrossFit. And to me, it seems very culty.
Oh, for sure. So is lacrosse.
Yeah, right.
So is podcasting.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But talk to me about that. Like why make that move into CrossFit? Like what attracted you to that? And then like maybe take us through like how CrossFit has helped with the entrepreneur type stuff.
Yeah. Well, so like I said earlier, I think universe has a sick sense of humor. They kind of like kick you in that direction. Even when people like us are, we're in control and we're choosing, we're going to do more, we're going to train harder. And it's like, you look back and you're like, oh, it just worked out. You got to show up, but like some things you just get forced in the right direction. CrossFit was that. Lacrosse was great. The business was doing well. But I still had that competitive space. And I have three younger brothers. Two of them were in the military. One still is. And the one that was a Marine had got out. He's like, you and Todd, my brother, he also played lacrosse in college, had graduated. He's like, you guys need to go do CrossFit. You need to try it. So we're like, all right, long story short, got hooked, started in 2008. By 2009, I had gone to the games, got my dad into it. He's a 3-time Masters champion. The bug bit, and like we drank the Kool-Aid hard. I still don't do paleo. We didn't get like that into it, but we were in it very early on, very deep. So some people in your audience are probably rolling their eyes, and the other CrossFitters are loving it. Yeah. But we got into it hard. And what was cool is, here I am again, a white, rich, privileged audience. And I'm like, I know how to deal with this. We just did this with lacrosse. So I helped a lot of gyms, learn how to build out sponsorships, their creative strategy, how to monetize some of their situation and their audience. We helped a little bit with diversity. I didn't fully know how to do that quite yet, even though we did it pretty well, okay-ish with lacrosse. These are two things that I would still not consider very diverse, but they are getting better. And both situations are doing great things to accomplish that. And that's obviously a heart piece for me. So anyways, it supplemented my situation. You know, I worked with Reebok directly with CrossFit, and those are actually Lacrosse people that knew me that hired me on. It's such a small world.
Yeah.
And so as CrossFit was getting bigger and we were competing, my business and I was taking off because I was on the athlete side and I was on the business side. And this is when Instagram's taking off, where the companies are like, okay, we need these influencers. We need to know what to do, but we don't know how to use them. And the athletes are like, okay, I want to work with these companies, but I don't know what to do. So we are kind of this perfect middle ground to be like, all right, here's how we build out the strategy. You're a CrossFit gym and you want to host a tournament that does this, or you're Reebok and you want to have 50 athletes that check these boxes and this parts of the country. So we can help you with that. So it just naturally started to happen. And I happened to be in that space where I could speak both languages, athlete and business person.
Yeah.
And then as it had taken off, it was similar to Lacrosse in that, like, okay, now we've got to this point. Now, how do we pay attention to the details? How do we diversify? How do we expose this to other people? How do we, apply this to our life? So it was the business. I always say, like, CrossFit took, it's so many hours to train, and the athletes now do it full time. They're unbelievable. But I was fortunate, and like I could almost monetize some of those hours because I was building relationships and I was living what I needed to live to speak the language to the athletes for the business. So right. I had this kind of like beautiful situation. It did wear me out, and we're in a very graceful mode now.
Yeah.
But it was a cool, like, unintentional situation.
Yeah. And then, so kind of building off that. So was that when the KO Alliance started, or that's when that started?
Yes. So I worked with Reebok. We worked with some majors and worked on the nonprofit side, and we had an eclectic experience. And that's when I was like, okay, we really need to just get our own group of influencers at this point. So people can come to us and be like, okay, we'd love a weightlifter that does this. We'd love a fisherman that does this, like any different kind of random stuff. And then we can manage them. So that's when KO Line started. We can just consult and say, here's how it's done. Since then, and that's why the podcast started, because the more we got into it and those situations started to take off, you see tons of companies doing influencer management, all that now. I personally was like, okay, now I see the power in this and see the smoke and mirrors, essentially, influencers changing how they look and companies claiming false things, particularly in consumer packaged goods, CPGs and supplements. And there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and the transparency is getting better because influencers are taking responsibility of their brand and their voice and understanding how they need to protect it. Big companies are understanding the impact of it. But the podcast was really brought to light for these humans to come to the mic and say, here's what we're doing, here's what's real, because all of this, the fake images, the naked people, the claims are going to continue to happen. We're here to disrupt the noise. So KO Alliance still exists, and we are very specifically work with mission-driven companies specifically because I have a heavy responsibility in my heart that, okay, if I'm helping brand build and push some of these voices, they have to be doing good in this world. And that absolutely cuts into the paycheck. But at the end of the day, we're here to make this world a better place, as cliche as that sounds. So that's where my responsibility kicked in. So KO Alliance is here, Turmeric and Tequila is here, and we're here to be as positive as we can.
Right. And then do the graceful disruption, which I think is like another cool, part of the brand. So talk to me about how that came out and then what that actually means.
Yeah. So we, shout out Podfest. I just gave a new speech. It was very raw during Pod. I think it went okay. We have that up as one of my latest casts.
I was there.
Definitely room for improvement.
Great.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
thank you. It's so weird to be like speaking.
Yeah.
Oh, I thank you for coming. I appreciate that. It was good. It's just weird to be speaking to yourself. Anyways, Graceful Disruption was just like this through line of what is Turmeric and Tequila? It's like challenging status quo. It's questioning a better way. And it was kind of like my quick, concise version of like, we're gracefully disrupting everything you think, because reality is nothing more than applied meaning. We are sold a dream. You are told marketing's so powerful. You're supposed to get married and have a big wedding. You're supposed to go to college and do this. You're supposed to do, and that's our ideology of what success in life should be. And it's not. Like, you can do whatever you want and you can let go of this. So I like the idea of, we need to disrupt this thing, what's going on in ideologies, and you need to do it gracefully, because as I said in my speech, the more you yell at people and tell them this and that, you got to like welcome them in and like have a conversation and understand their side and listen. Funny story though, I actually went to Trade Market because you got to have the business put together. And there's a company that wants to own the word disruption. So at some point I might
just disruption.
Disrupt, yeah, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. I might have to have a GoFundMe for legal fees, but I'm putting faith in the universe it'll work out. So
right. We got some attorneys that listen to the show, so maybe that
Holler
works
your
out.
Girl.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
it's a good thing, but I think it's an easily digestible situation. I didn't know if turmeric and tequila people are going to get that, but it was this is exactly me. Like I love those two things. And Graceful Disruption just so spoke to me because I'm not, I'm a competitive athlete and CrossFit's aggressive and lacrosse and it's not graceful. So I've had to work on like, calm down. Let's be graceful. Let's talk about it. So it's an extension of my personal evolution.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And so like as you're doing that, with the show, and I do want to kind of get into like the podcasting side of it because as a podcaster, I think it's really interesting. And actually, my next question was going to be about Podfest. Was that the first time that you saw that like maybe your message was starting to get out when you were asked to go speak at Podfest, or were there other moments that you started to see like, oh, hey, people are like resonating with these messages that I've been putting out for, months, years, whatever.
I think maybe you might be able to relate to this. I think as I was managing certain people and like, reality humans or coaches or athletes or whatever, there was times when I was in the room, and this is not from like an egomyopic statement. It was more just like an awareness of like, they're speaking and you're helping managing, but I'm like, I feel like I could do this better. I have more experience in this. I know this. And I'm like, and I coached varsity high school lacrosse for 9 years. When I walked away, because the schedule was too crazy and I lived too far away, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I feel like I have some skill set that's unused there. Like walking away felt like a disservice to all the privilege and experience I've ever had in my life. Like I felt like I owed something to be as useful to this world as possible. And then, managing people. And again, as universe, we look back and I was recording things when I was younger. We were recording like on tape decks and stuff. And, speaking was always a passion. I'm not a trained speaker, but I'm totally down to get in front of people. I looked at the path, and then as podcasting became bigger and bigger, and I was on a few podcasts, I was like, I think this could be a thing. And then as I was getting more and more uncomfortable with the world telling everybody what they need to be doing, particularly through social media, and I'm like, well, we've got these angles. I'm like, we just have to step in through the mic. And then come Podfest, one of my friends, shout out Sarah, had like a half off pass. I was like, I think I just got to book this ticket and just go. Like this thing doesn't make money, but I just have a feeling. Showed up, randomly sat down next to Larry that day. I was early before my crew got there. So I just literally sat down at like, it was a meetup or something. And he was like, hey, and Pod Sound School was sitting across from them. So like universe, I think just looked out. And from there, like that's, and Larry connected me to PodMax crew and some connections and like, it's just become a family. And it so reminds me of lacrosse and then CrossFit. And it's like, cult's an aggressive word, but it is like this really great community. And aside from like our audio skills, these are purpose mission driven humans that are out here to just work hard and show up and not get paid and be as useful to this world as possible. And it's so inspiring for me to hear that these voices are on the mic and the world is listening. If it's 2 people or if it's 10 million, like the positive messages are out there. And to me, that's such a big deal.
Yeah. And I would 100% agree with that. Like I started the show in this iteration in July. So like, it's still relatively new.
But 60 episodes, I thought I read you had.
Well, yeah, today was the 50th one.
Okay.
So yeah, so that was, like a big jump, but like the show originally started with, it was just a LinkedIn video series that I would just do just to kind of like get my face and my name and everything out there more. But like I said to you kind of before we got on here, like I didn't listen to podcasts before I started doing a show. I was just, I sell title insurance. So as part of the real estate industry, all I do is I go out for lunch or for drinks or to events. And obviously, which is awesome. Like I'm not complaining about that job. I would never complain about this job. But obviously like in March when all the shit hit the fan and COVID started and I couldn't do any of that stuff because here in Jersey, obviously everything was shut down and couldn't go out to do those things. So needed a way to keep my face, voice, whatever out there. And started doing virtual networking events, like running my own, because I've always run my own events, young professionals, real estate, whatever it is, was getting like a ton of good traction on there. Then got the idea, like, what if I took some of these people and put them on LinkedIn because video gets more engagement on LinkedIn. So did that. Then did 60 episodes over a 12-week span of that, which, as you can imagine, as a podcaster is a ton. And like, doing all like the recording, scheduling, editing, re-recording, re-editing when people weren't happy with it because I didn't have very, polished, I guess, guests. So that was like a whole thing. And then fast forward to the current iteration of the show. That is one of the things that I would, that's a long story, but that is one of the things that I would totally agree with you is that once I found like people, because I was just kind of like trying to figure it out as I go. And I'm a big believer in the fact that like you hear a lot of podcasters talk about like, oh, you need to be consistent. You need to do this. You need to have this show, this episode length. You need to do whatever. that's like, I make up my own rules as I go
Yes.
for a lot of things. And this has been one of them because I just didn't know. But
Yeah.
then getting into this community and finding some of those same people that you just mentioned, like learning from them and just like not even always like talking to them, just like watching what they do and like how they run a show and listening and all that. And then when you actually do ask them a question, it's insane how just like giving and collaborative and everything like the podcasting community actually is.
100%.
Yeah.
But if that's your heart, of course it attracted you and pulled you in. Like, of course we're sitting here having this conversation because you look back and you're like, this is what I've always known. Even as a coach, like you're standing in front of humans, coaching them, even at the collegiate level, that's a big deal. And now here you are advising again. So it's kind of like the same role that's repeating itself in different forms. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I think it's awesome. And it's just been like, not only just from like a marketing networking type, space for me, but just as like a educational. And like you said, I mean, taking the stuff that I was good at, repackaging it into something else and kind of putting it in front of people and allowing me to kind of express myself and be me has just been like off the charts, like an amazing outlet for me, especially over like the last 7-8 months. All right, so let's talk. Sorry, I don't know why I've been doing so many clubhouse rooms and like podcast episodes. Like I'm like my voice is shot and I'm just like struggling through this one.
Podcasting is the new fitness.
Yeah, seriously. Like I mean, like I could feel it in my chest, and it just hopefully it's not anything else. But all right, so let's fast forward to now. So the podcast has obviously grown. KO Alliance has obviously grown. So like what, as someone that I would assume has a lot of goals, because you are, goal driven, like as most athletes are, business people are.
We're crazy. Yeah.
Crazy. What are some things that you kind of see as goals for you moving forward? It could just be like within the next year. Maybe it's moving forward into, 5-10 years from now. Like kind of where do you see this path kind of taking you?
Yeah. Well, so I am careful what I put into the universe. And so I strategically say I want the podcast to be it. Like in my heart, I know this is my most useful, most purposeful way I can be of service to this world. I have zero doubts. How that looks, how it forms and takes hold, I have no idea, but like you were just going to keep showing up. It feels good. I think it sounds okay. We're in it. So, KO Alliance will always operate, but at some point I really want, I know some people are doing like Patreon for their show. I have not monetized my show strategically. So to this point, I really want to just be raw and handcuffed and is what it is. And that's obviously part of our message. It's just like, even my first episodes with shitty audio, I leave all of it up so people can see like the process and how it's transformed. And hopefully that inspires them just to take their first step and let it be ugly, as Chris says from Podfest. But I would love strategic partners. There's companies coming from that space that I really, really love. They're disruptors. They're doing things different, working with companies of color that women owned or on sustainability. And like, I really want strategic partners within that. And I just want the show to grow in a very unique way. I see what, these big dogs that are making big money, the way they're doing it. I think that's great, but I don't think that's the way I'm going to do it. And even I love that you just said, here's how it is and all the rules. And yes. And even now I listen to what some of these other shows say, and I still don't want to do it that way. So
yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm just going to ride it till it bucks me. But I don't know. I just, in my gut, I just have faith that this is it. It might be an ugly up and down process, but so what? And this is kind of the end game, and we're just going to see where it evolves. And I don't know if you've watched a lot of the business side scene, like Spotify get in and like big investors and like audio for anyone that's listening. And they're like, everyone's got a podcast. Well, great. You should start one too, if it speaks to you, because I think it's the next big thing. And I think we're on the trend setting tip of what it is. Even though it's not brand new, I think it's a big deal. So, and I think humans like us are in it for a reason and not from ego space. It's from where we're useful. And I think this is the avenue. So this is my end game, and I'm super excited to see how it evolves.
That's awesome. I read this interesting, nugget on Twitter, I think it was. And it was the fact that podcasting, like the first podcast came out, I think like 17 years ago. Mm-hmm. And when television first started, 17 years into television, they still hadn't had color TV yet. And so it's just like, that kind of like puts the whole, market in perspective, that like, it's been around for a while. It's not new, I guess, but there's still so much more to go as like it kind of continues to evolve, and different, players getting involved. And obviously like Spotify with the whole thing that they're trying to do is big. So I think that like being I mean, granted, it took me a little bit to kind of get into podcasting, but like I guess it's somewhat of the ground floor, maybe like the first or second floor, but still that's pretty good as it kind of continues to build.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I'll flip this on you. Would this be your full-time end game?
As I'm sitting here on my work laptop, talking to you, so no.
Acceptable.
Yeah, right. But you listen, like, I mean, I started this, like I said before, because I needed a way to kind of get myself out there in an environment where I could not. And when I first started it, I was like a little bit hesitant to kind of like lean into what you see here on the screen today, because I wanted it to be professional and I wanted it to be buttoned up and I wanted it to be scripted, because I wanted it, like, if anybody from work saw me doing what I was doing, I wanted them to be like, okay, he's doing this for work. And I still am doing it for work, but I like the fact that the people that I have that are my boss or their bosses have actually like reached out to me and be like, yo, love what you're doing. Keep doing it. And, you know, I think that that's like one of the things. And I think like when we're talking about authenticity and this, you know, full circle, this is what podcasters do. We just weave these stories. Authenticity, like when I started selling title insurance and I'm talking to attorneys and I'm talking to real estate developers and I'm talking to commercial real estate lenders, like I need to kind of put up like a front almost and kind of, you know, be a chameleon in that sense and kind of like be in that room with them and be able to feel like I fit. Even though maybe I was not as experienced. Obviously, it didn't come from a real estate background. I came from a baseball background, and now I'm selling title insurance. But and then it was the same thing with this. And then when all along, like I just realized that I was kind of doing like I had like the business mic, I had you know, relationship mic, I had friend mic, I had family mic, and I was just like, this is exhausting trying to juggle all these different personalities. Let's just like take them all and just like slam them into what I actually am. And I think that that's kind of like where I got to. So like, I think I love podcasting. I think it's given me the opportunity to be me. And I think that like the more that I am me, the more comfortable I get as me. That's like where my authenticity starts to really kind of drive from. And then I think in like this environment, you know, like when my colleagues and people that are, you know, my bosses are telling me that they like what I'm doing and they're, you know, encouraged by it and, you know, keep up the good work. I think that that's what it's all about right there. So, you know, I want to sell title insurance for the rest of my life.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, at some point you never, and like when I say this is my end game, you don't know how things are going to evolve. Like I look back and CrossFit wasn't a thing. Like if you looked at my 19-year-old self and you'd be like, you on a podcast, I'd be like, okay, what is that? And no, give me something else. Like what does that even mean? So you don't, I mean, you could be a consultant at one point for title insurance companies that want to start a podcast. Like who knows how it's going to go.
Right. Yeah. And that's like the thing. I mean, I don't know what the end game is. And like I had a guest on recently, like she's a Olympic high jumper. And she was just talking about how like she always had like a goal in mind, but like the path has just always been different. So it's just like your GPS rerouting. Yeah. You're going to get to where you want to get to. It's just a matter of like how you go, you know, like how many turns you have to make before you actually get there. So let's go back to you because you did come on my show. So let's make sure that we're like talking about everything that you got going on. So Botox wrinkles highlight the scars. Why would you Botox one and then highlight the other?
Yeah, well, Botox is actually, I want to work with them at some point. And people, I get, this sounds like ego and myopic. I'm here for, like, I'm a fitness human. We are the most, we are the people that come from vein space. And even as a baseball player, I know, I think you get into fitness for one reason and then you stay in it for another. But I love it. I love taking care of myself, getting it together and being honest about it. Again, this is part of the smoke and mirrors when we get influencers out there and they're like, oh, well, you're, 40 years old and you don't have gray hair and you don't do this and your eyelashes look long this. I'm like, well, yes, I do all those things. Like I take care of it. And I like being transparent about it. Like that's what it is. And you could love it or hate it. That's totally fine. And I did a whole podcast on Botox because to me, the outside it doesn't really matter. Like you can do whatever you want. It's about, as long as your insides dial in, that's the key piece. You can do everything you want on the outside. I mean, you look at a multitude of really beautiful, famous people and you see that their life is genuinely a mess because the inside's not put together. So to me, the outside's very surface level. So I say Botox wrinkles because whatever, follow your heart there, or don't, just age gracefully. That's fine. That's one thing I won't do gracefully though, being 100%, that is. But the scars, I think that's signs of experience. I mean, my body's so beat up. I have ACL scar. I have my knee cleaned out 3 times. I've got stitches from my face from like a dog bite. All kinds of things. And you look back and those are like stories that you have earned. Like those are pieces. I mean, like a tattoo is intentional. And if that's your vibe, follow your heart. But a scar is like an unplanned mark that's just there and you couldn't have planned it. And so you just have to embrace it. So that's, again, the juxtaposition of both things.
Yeah. I think that's great. I mean, I never actually, luckily never had to have like a surgery or
okay. That's good as a
broken
collegiate
bone.
baseball player.
Yeah. Right. Like arm still somewhat works. Like even a couple years ago, I guess it was 2 years ago, I pitched like the last summer. So that was like, I hadn't pitched in years and was just like, I'm just going to do it. And then just kind of like got myself into shape. And then just started doing it because like one of the things that I noticed, and I don't know if you ever noticed it, and I think, you talked about it before, was that like the playing career was over, but then I got right into coaching. So then I kind of had like an outlet to use what basically had defined me for like a long time. Like Mike plays baseball, like Mike gets good grades and he plays baseball. And like, that's
an identity.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like I didn't play baseball anymore, but I coached. So that kind of like filled that gap. And then when I started to get out of that and try to get into like this life, it was like jarring almost because it was like something that had been ingrained for me for, I guess like 26 years to that point. And then just to kind of have it like not taken away, but just to make the conscious decision, like, hey, we're going to go do something else now was like difficult. And I know that your story is a little bit different because you had the injury and all that kind of stuff. So did you feel that too?
100%. And people I've worked with, like athletes, it's the biggest thing when they quit playing. I see a ton of like depression of college kids getting out of their collegiate sport, especially if they're like really good and notable. And you kind of you lose your identity in that period. I had torn my ACL in my sophomore year in college, and I had to get it cleaned out. I lost like 35 pounds. There was no tequila, no turmeric. Like I was just straight up depressed. And I was a kiddo. It was the first time like my identity was fully taken away. And I had traveled 2,000 miles to go to this school. And then here I am injured and I can't even play. And I'm trying to work for a scholarship here. And so everything was wiped away in an instant and I was miserable. So it was an awakening. It was a blessing because I had to be like, okay, we're a lacrosse player. And that's when I really had to be like, people like, you have to get ready. You have to get your knee healthy for your life. And I was like, F that. I need to play. I don't care about having kids or whatever. Like I'm just here to play lacrosse. I got 3 years of eligibility and that's it. There's no pro women's lacrosse, blah, blah, blah. So that was an awakening point for me to be like, okay, we got to diversify the identity a little bit. So, and by the time I graduated, I was so, again, that 5th year, be careful what you wish for. Cause I was worried about not wanting to be being ready to be done with lacrosse. So university granted me that 5th year and I was so done. I couldn't even believe, but I did go right into coaching. I started a lacrosse company. And then CrossFit took off so I could identify as a CrossFitter and competitive athlete. So yes, as that has gone on, it's been I think a graceful letting go for me. And I think that's a blessing because that immediate cutoff I see in so many athletes is really, really hard. And I get that, but I experienced that as a sophomore when I tore my ACL. So that breakup is huge. And I think it's just like when parents, their kids go to college or you start a new job, or we cling so hard to these identities that we think make us up and think, make our cup full. I'm a title insurance professional. I'm a podcaster. I'm this. Yes. And like your other thing is that should probably be a whole podcast in itself, a conscious conversation of diversify your identity. So when one goes away, you're not heartbroken because you're not any of those things in reality.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. Did you, when you got hurt, like, that's like one of the things that I always was struggled with talking to when I was recruiting or when I was, like when I between the college coaching and the title insurance sales, I worked at an indoor sports facility here in Jersey as like their director of operations. Cause I just needed a job. They asked me if they looked at my resume. They were like, well, you're a college baseball coach with an MBA. Do you want to run our business? And I was like, yes. And it was like not a great 8 months. I mean, it just wasn't a good fit for a variety of reasons. But one of the things that I remember talking to like parents about and, the kids was that like, every kid wanted to go Division I. Every kid wanted to go to like the biggest school possible. Like they want to go to LSU. They want to go to Clemson. They want to go to wherever. And you have to have like sometimes hard conversations with them and just be like, dude, that's not going to happen. You're good, but you're maybe not that good. But like one of the things that I think was important for me when I was like selecting a school was like finding a place where I knew that I fit. Like if you took baseball off the table, would I fit in with the people there? For me, like TCNJ was that spot. Like I knew that, I did transfer there. But looking back, like it was like a perfect thing. Did you feel that too with where you were at, or no?
No, like as I said, I'm a masochist. So it's never like we're just gonna go play. And again, I was this Midwest lacrosse kid.
Yeah,
My
right.
coach played like softball, and I'm like, no, I'm going top 20, and I'm playing with these East Coast kids. But again, I think I was learning this lesson of like just naively go out there, throw your hat in the ring, get stomped on, beat to hell, learn from the best, and adapt quickly. Pack a helmet, and figure it out. And I should have been. I think that's a very mature response for you to be that aware as a young person. I was not that. I dead set on going top 20 D1 because I had something to prove. My high school wasn't good. We didn't have a lot of opportunity to go like play competitively or anything else. But like I knew if I could just get there in my gut, I could survive, figure it out, and be good. Because I was a good athlete. I just wasn't a good lacrosse player yet.
Yeah.
So I had this naive belief, but that has served me over time. And again, these are where the scars come in because I've chosen to run through the wall versus like gracefully walk and learn and listen. But I did that with lacrosse. I did that with starting a business. I did that with CrossFit. And I don't know that I'd always recommend that, but for me, it served me. So I think if you're a young person looking to do something, have the ability to see, like, does this serve me as a person, as a part of this student body? Is the business school good? Is it in addition to my sport and all these things? No, I think I told my parents they have a great business school, but by junior year, I transferred to communication, which ironically it worked out because it fit into my lacrosse schedule. So,
right. Whatever. Yeah. I have a political science degree. So obviously I am using that a lot.
Perfect. But if you run for president, I'll vote for you.
All right, cool. Thanks. Yeah. This will be the first start of the platform for the Mike Ham run of 2020, whatever, 2026, whatever the next one is. And as you could tell, making up the own rules, like this show is like literally all over the place. So we've talked about a lot of different things at different points of the episode. So, sorry.
No, it's perfect. I think there's many through lines through all of this. Like, again,
I think so too.
Yeah, the thing, everything kind of cycles back.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's just a matter of like just weaving it together. Yeah. So like let's look at, maybe as we get kind of closer to the end of this episode, we're probably gonna do like one more question and then we'll get into the closing segment. More of just like is like a looking back. And I think that like it's sometimes easy to look back and like regret a lot of things that you've done like over your life and all that. But one of the things that I think that has been something that I've started to lean into the idea of more is that like the only reason why I'm sitting here doing this as something that like I really enjoy is because of like literally it's like the butterfly effect, literally every single decision that I've made up until this point. So if there are people listening that kind of like are resonating with your story, like do you feel the same way, or do you think that there's things that you would have done differently, or maybe like just like some advice as you kind of like keep, progressing forward in life?
Yeah, I think that's really well said. It definitely resonates. It's when you take time to reflect and look. I turned 40 in October. And so I think I'm big. I love all birthdays. So everyone's like, it's a big one. I'm like, yeah, I celebrate all of them like that because we're here for tequila. So I think, but when you pause though, and you really reflect and you're like, oh shit, this added up and this did this. And I always say this on my podcast, my Varsity Humans, we're going to train harder. We're going to do more. We'll study harder. We'll figure out, we'll fix it. We'll show up, like whatever you want. But sometimes it's more isn't more. And you look back at the patterns, like had I not torn my ACL and gone to goal when I shouldn't have, and whatever, had I not wanted to, or we had no budget with Sierra's Lacrosse, so we had to innovate, like had some of these things worked out the way I wanted them to work out, I wouldn't be sitting here and I wouldn't have what I, exactly where I am being in where I am in life. And truthfully, all cliches aside, I've never been happier. I've never been more in touch with who I am as a person, how I care about being purposeful in this world, where I think I'm useful to this world. One of my favorite songs is Use Me Up by Bill Withers. If you haven't heard that, check it out. And that's it. Like, just use me up, take whatever. I've been so blessed in my life. And yes, it has been a road and there's been many things, but truly privileged and blessed and has been provided for so many things. So I take it very seriously at this point in the game to be useful, to be responsible, and to be productive. So without all of those failures and successes and jumbled up together, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So you can't change any part of it. And are there things where I'd be like, yes, that was a really dumb mistake, or that was hurtful, or whatever, 100%. But again, you can't really change it, because then that changes everything. I mean, if you take one ingredient out of the recipe, it's not the same thing. So
yeah, right.
No regrets.
Yeah. Hashtag no regrets. So tequila, just as like a quick sidebar, I mean, like with my experiences with tequila in college, like I never drink tequila now. And I don't know how you still do it. But that's just my 2 cents on tequila.
Well, that's so funny because I get like one or two stories. People are like, yes, I love turmeric. And I'm like, oh, you know what it is. Wonderful. And then they're like, tequila, like, ooh. And it's like, I know they've got a story. I think I needed a whole podcast where I just taking people's stories. Like, it's always a nightmare. The thing is, I didn't drink tequila in college because it was expensive. We were drinking like Natty Light. We were like just gross, poor athletes.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I didn't get into it, ironically, until CrossFit because it was like the cleanest thing. And being in the health and wellness industry, I've done everything from like brain mapping to blood testing to like into the minutia of human optimization, like figuring it all out. And that's a whole thing too. But the plant-based, like non-mixed liquors, my body does the best with, and actually most people do. So I just started drinking it because of that. It was like where you can go right to the line before you cut out alcohol because it's not productive as far as training and life.
Right.
And so it was like the cleanest. I don't feel hungover from it, blah, blah, blah. And then the more I drank and I got into like different brands and mezcals and whatever, like I'm genuinely an enthusiast now. But my key was I didn't drink it early. So everyone that drank like cheap Montezuma or whatever in college that almost died. Yeah. It's, I get it.
All my experiences are just like, I can't really relay them to you, but it's just like I know I was drinking it and then the lights turned off and then I would wake up the next morning and be like, like naked someplace like on campus or something. But yeah, so that's right. Yeah, like 400 miles away from like where I need to be. But
I've heard some of those stories, no joke.
Yeah, right. And what's the tequila of choice though? No shameless plugs, whatever.
Yeah,
we do them all.
Well, we don't have any paint sponsors yet, and I'm very strategic on supporting companies that support us and vice versa. But I really do. So when I say like people like who inspires you, is your favorite human, your brand or whatever, I love the full encompassing. It's kind of like the human comment situation. Like, so I love the brands like I'll say 21 Seeds because they're women owned. One of them is a person of color. They source an agave plant in Mexico that's woman owned. Like they're very intentional and they really taste good. And they started it because they couldn't drink fermented like beer and wine situation. So they're making tequila like an everyday thing. So I like the intentional companies because most of them, I like Blanco. I'm a simple tequila human, are great. But the big ones that have sold for like hundreds of millions of dollars and they've got big celebrity names behind it, they're delicious. Yeah. And I try intentionally purchase the ones that are on the smaller level, still trying to make it in the game because they're equally as good.
So not always like what's the one that Clooney owns?
Casamigos.
There's like the
Patron is owned by Paul Mitchell.
Kenny Chesney, doesn't he have one?
I think Chesney does. Tremana is The Rock. I mean, at some point I actually want to have my own as we speak about how saturated it is, and my following is not comparable to theirs. But hashtag goals down the road. Maybe we'll put some turmeric in it. I don't know. Anyways, I just try and be an intentional consumer and like try these other guys. And I like La Luna, I think it is. They're not even expensive, like the Blanca tequila. So it doesn't even have to be like a high end one.
All right. Well, maybe I'll try it and then I'll let you know what the experience is like. But I don't know. I'm not too hopeful, but maybe I have like low expectations and then I'll get, like low expectations, high reward, whatever it is.
I mean, even like a margarita, you could try with like a mix maybe or something. Yeah. I'm not a big sweet drinker, but maybe something in the
yeah. Well, that's the other thing too. Like one time, this was like last year, I guess. Like again, not a big tequila drinker, and I love how I said that this was gonna be like the last question, maybe like 10 minutes ago, but whatever. Like had my buddy made me a frozen marg, and he was like, "You want one?" And I said, "Sure," because it looked good, and everyone was drinking them. Peer pressure, and I drank it, and like that was it. It was the same thing. It was like lights were off, but he was using like Jose Cuervo or something.
Oh no, no. College is over. We've earned the right to get even. I mean, no, even that. No, it's mixed. It has to be pure. Anything that's mixed and it'll settle. 100% agave is the way to go. It's your pro tip here. Anything mixed, skip it. Don't do it. And that's with any alcohol. But gin and tequila are your two plant-based ones. Get them as clean as possible, and you'll be the least hungover. And don't mix it with a sugary drink.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Noted. Yeah. Maybe I'll even go pick up some today after this, and I'll let you know. And all that. So, all right. So I know we're going to move this into the closing segment, which we call Under the Spotlight. So the Spotlighters, which is what I call the Morning Spotlight listeners, as I mentioned, they have listened to Mike Cam and Kristen Olson talk for, 45 minutes now. So what is one thing that you want them to walk away from this episode with? It could be something that we've already discussed. It could be something that we haven't discussed yet, and you just think is really important. You want to make sure we talk about it. So what is that one thing?
Give yourself some grace in your own journey, meaning look back and know that you're doing enough. I know this is very cliche, but you're doing enough. You are enough in this moment, and take a little bit of the pressure off, knowing that if you're showing up and you're doing the right things, universe, God, Madonna, something's looking out for you and putting you in the right place, exactly where you need to be, right on time.
Awesome. Love it. I love Under the Spotlight because I just get like I should probably put a compilation together of Under the Spotlight stuff because every single one just like is a banger. It's awesome. I love it.
I love that. You should. I love that. This is a great piece, by the way, unsolicited feedback.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And then, all right. So obviously the podcast can be heard everywhere, right? Apple, everywhere. Google, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Are there any other places that you want to make sure that people go to get more Kristen Olson, more Turmeric and Tequila, more KO Alliance, all that?
Yeah, koalliance.com, turmericandtequila.com, Turmeric Tequila on Facebook and Instagram, KO Alliance. You can go to any one of these. You can find me, the business, and the podcast. Turmeric and Tequila is on YouTube now. That's a whole other jungle. I got to lean into Pod Sound School. They're so varsity with YouTube, everything, but we're on there. I'm welcoming all feedback. I have all my videos. We've got the speech up. So everything, it is such a work in progress, but we're on there. So if you like visual, which I do, and I'm here for video, as unprofessional as some of it is, we're on there. So I would love for people to check it out and let me know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, the video thing is, and that's why I have this background. I know that's why you got the flag back there, the whole thing. So
yeah,
just trying to figure some stuff out, but it's a learning process. So, all right. For the Spotlighters, I will make sure that I put my contact information. The email address is morningspotlight@gmail.com, or the website is themorningspotlight.com. So make sure you go check us out there. If you want to come on the show as a guest, if you want to hear us talk about a specific topic on the guest, that is the best place to go to do that. Kristen, thank you again so much for doing this. This was great.
Thank you so much. Amazing conversation.
Of course. Absolutely. And Spotlighters, thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time.